Good morning. This is a self-poem that I'm writing to myself, that on the day that the Lord called me home, I pray that this is recorded. Being a female
is for
it's not easy.
married couples as well
Just as well as being a man is not easy.
individuals.
But being a wife is hard.
Want to
It's hard being a wife of or in a marriage with a man that is not on the same level or going on the same path that you're going on. It's hard when you have one that's striving to be better, to do better, and want better, and the other one shows no movement of either way. It's hard when you have one person seeking the face of God with everything they got, and the other one is comfortable where they're at. As a wife, we desire a man that has a heart after God. As a wife, we desire a man that can protect, that can provide, that will love and cherish the very gift that God created from his side. A wife appreciates the value of her husband. She knows her duties. She knows what she's supposed to do and not to do. A wife is submissive, humble, and carry humility. A wife will carry the whole entire family on her back when that was designed for a man. A wife will go through the ends of the earth to make sure that her family is happy. A wife will bow down, naked and wounded, throwing herself at the altar of God for mercy for her husband. A wife would do about anything to make sure that her home is happy. The one thing about man that they neglect is the precious gift of appreciation of a woman. The very small things that a woman would like and desire is comfort when she's crying, an ear when her mind is heavy, a shoulder to lean on when she feels alone, a chest to lay upon to know that she is secure. A wife desires the appreciation of love, of embracing her just because. She appreciates tender words as, I love you, I need you, I'm empty without you, you are beautiful, you are sexy, you are wonderful, and if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have my beautiful children. A woman appreciates, as well as a wife, the very small things of tender words, such as, is there anything that I can do for you? Is there anything that you need? A woman and wife appreciate the tender words coming from her husband. Can I pray with you? Can I pray over you? Let's fast together. A woman and a wife appreciate the tender words and gestures of opening a door or leading behind or beside her man. She appreciates when her husband can get up with her in the morning to walk her to the car and give her a kiss and embrace her and not just brush her off. A woman and a wife appreciate the very gestures and the actions of her husband checking on her just to make sure that she's safe, to give her that phone call when she reach work, or video chat her when you at work. She appreciates the gestures and the actions of her husband when she walks in a door and roses is standing near on the table. She appreciates the gestures and the actions of her husband when she walks in her home and the meal is already prepared. She's appreciate the gestures and the kind actions of her husband when she walks in her home and dinner is ready and he's there to serve her. She appreciates the gestures and the actions of her husband when he just looks into her eyes and you can see the beauty and the love that he has for her. A woman and a wife appreciate the gestures and the actions of a man that can show his emotions, that can break down before her and can trust her with his heart. A wife and a woman appreciate the gestures and the actions of a man, of her husband, when she can't go to nobody else or not even to her best friend, but can go to her husband. A woman, a wife, appreciates a man that can simply appreciate her. Not wait until she's sick and bad, laying on her back. Not waiting until you go view her body. Not waiting until you get ready to close that casket and realize that very moment when that casket is closed, all of the things that I just mentioned, you just lost out on. There's no way that you can replace that. There's no way that you can rebuild that. There's no way that you can ever get that back. No matter if you even try to move on, there will never be a way that you can even replace all that you just lost in that casket. At that very moment when you're driving down behind the hearse or you're in the family car and you pull up at the gravesite, at that moment you may just now realize the very vows that you took, they become real. It may not even be to that moment until you get out of that family car, out your personal car, and you begin to walk up on the gravesite and have a sitting seat right there front row. And you're staring at that casket, and inside that casket is a corpse that would never speak, that would never kiss you, that would never hug you, that would never tell you she loves you, that would never be there to wash your clothes, to fold them, to iron them. You realize at that moment that she would never be there to wake up in the morning with a smile on her face, despite of how she felt and what she went through in the relationship of your marriage. You realize at that moment that she won't be there to get on your nerves to make you smile or make you laugh. You realize at that moment, staring in that casket, that you won't be able to walk and hold hands and go out to eat and do the things that you used to do or that you could have done and or that you should have done. At that moment, when you're sitting there at front row seat in the audience, staring at that casket, realizing that at that very moment, that was the gift that God gave me. And at that moment, you realize that you didn't have that relationship that you should have had. And do you know that at that moment, you never know if you will ever get that half of a rib again. At that moment, it just may be at that moment, as they begin to say ashes to ashes and dust to dust, is at that moment when you realize that that casket is gone down in the grave and the dirt is over and covering the casket, that you realize that the memories and the times and all the things that you did, and once the image that you had of that wife, of that rib, is no longer there anymore. And it may not be until that time when all that is over and you get back home and realize that the house is empty. And it's so hard to recapture and regrasp the image of that beautiful queen that God had given you. That gift, it may just be at that moment when you lay in there sleep at night and the bed is cold. Or it may not even be until that moment when you roll over and realize that that rib and that gift that once was lying there is no longer there. This poem is dedicated to all husbands who has dropped the ball on the gift that God has given you. Life is too short. And it's time that men realize the gift they have with them. Don't allow it to be at that moment in time when there's nothing else that you can do. And that woulda and coulda and shoulda is no longer available to you. It's a sad thing that women, wives, walk around with emotions and pain and hurt, and they're lonely because the one that they married may not be their soulmate. And they realize that this man is not truly giving them what they truly desire. That's a sad place to be in, and a sad place for a wife, as well as a husband, to be in. I pray that one day that we take these vows in marriage seriously, and that as a wife, we know what we're supposed to do, and as a husband, know what he's supposed to do. It is sad that you can have a man in a home and yet feel lonely. And you can have a wife at home and yet you feel lonely. And one thing about it is sad when you have to go outside to find the things that you are seeking for, the things that you urge for, and the things that you desire for, and the things that you have been wanting in your marriage, and the reason why you married, but yet there's an empty void there. This poem is dedicated to every male and to every female. It's time to wake up and pay attention to the gift that lies before you. Don't take it for granted, because one day it could be gone. And there's nothing no one can do or say to bring that gift back.